Hello.
Thank you, Coach. We'll begin with Parker Gabriel of the Denver Post. Go ahead, Parker.
Hey,
Yep.
Sean, just with a chance to watch the tape, did your thinking on Bo's play and maybe particularly his accuracy, did it match when you watched the film, your opinions from yesterday?
Yeah, I think it did. And I'll give you a few examples. I just watched a play where he climbs the pocket. Like there were some bloody looks and he's off schedule, throwing off the wrong foot. But I would say doing what he has to on that play. In other words, there's a dagger opened up, but we're not good in protection. Um, so look, certainly when we watch this game tape and evaluate the cue, there's a number of things that will get cleaned up and corrected. But man, I said it yesterday. I'll say it again. One of the key things that was important in this game is winning the run game battle, and we weren't able to do that. We struggled, and in that inefficiency on first and second down, it was one of our keys to victory, and we were anything but. Defensively in the first half, we were outstanding. And then the third quarter was the flip around quarter. That was when the momentum shifted. They were a little bit more no huddle. They had their explosives. That was their best rushing quarter. But yeah, specifically to your question with Bo, I didn't see. Look, certainly, like I saw a 3-step and a hitch instead of a 5 and a hitch on a certain play. We'll get that cleaned up. But overall, when he's climbing a pocket or he's on the move, extending a play, there's times where the ball's going to get away from you. But my bigger concern today, number one, the first half provided, that game early was there a little bit for the taking. We didn't take advantage of the field position, the interception by Alex. We're sitting there in a perfect position to really go up, and we don't take advantage of the field position there. Our red zone offense, wasn't nearly as good as it needed to be, and we did have some drops early on. But I think when I watch this tape offensively, we need to be better around him, and we will be.
Andrew Mason, 1043 The Fan.
Yeah, Sean, speaking of the offense around him, what did you see from the film in regards to pass pro and run blocking that you didn't necessarily see from field level on Sunday?
It's kind of what I thought I saw field level. It wasn't good enough. I think I said that after the game. There were too many 2 to 3 yard gains. When you look at Javonte and Jaleel's numbers, we have to be more effective there. And that's something we talked about in the team meeting. You go into a game like that, and look, the plan wasn't. Someone asked a good question yesterday. We weren't. There may be a game where we plan on throwing it 40 times, not many. So oftentimes, time of possession and runs in the fourth quarter, if you're up by, let's say, 10 or more, can get skewed a little bit in your favor. But this was a game where, it's the opposite. You're having to throw it to get back in it late. And I would say from an assignment standpoint, our landmarks, some of those things have got to get cleaned up. And then I'd tell you there's a couple runs that we've got to see better vision wise from the running back position. Audric has one where, I don't know that his eyes are in the right spot, but he's got a chance for a much bigger play. Javonte has one. So overall, we've got to improve in that area. And then look, there were some early drops by the receivers, and then we bounced back. I thought we blocked okay on the perimeter. We got a lot of soft coverage. And so what's difficult when you're getting some of that soft zone is it encourages you to run it more or attack underneath or inside with the tight ends and running backs. And it's probably one area. Here we are, the game's over. We have to ask ourselves as coaches, all right, if we played it again, what would we have done different? And there are a handful of things that I felt like I didn't do a good enough job with relative to the inner triangle as to what we were seeing.
Eric Dalala, DenverBroncos.com.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned the defensive performance in the first half. Jonathan Cooper in particular, what did you see from him, and maybe how did he benefit from that enhanced defensive line that you guys built this offseason?
Yeah, look, the one thing you always see from Coop, and number one, he's a downhill straight line. He's a physical player, and so that becomes a load if you're a tight end or even if you're a tackle. So you feel a strong presence. He's certainly one of our edge players that we rely on, not only for pressure in the passing game, but also setting an edge in the run game.
Troy Rank, the Denver Post.
Coach, when you look at the run game, would it help at all? And I'm certainly not a coach here, but would it help at all to go in shotgun more? Would that create more options or make it easier for the line and or the backs regarding their vision?
No, listen, we're in shotgun, and especially with our quarterback now, I'll bet we're into that game with at least 11 shotgun runs.
I'm sorry. Under center, Coach. I'm sorry. I've said it backward. Under center.
All right. Well, that's all right. Look, conventionally we're under center. I'd have to take a look at yesterday's breakdown, but I'm going to say we were at least landed more in the run game under center. We typically will be, and so I don't know that yesterday's numbers. I know for sure, Troy, and I with all due respect, the topics relative to what we were doing running the football were not shotgun or under center driven, and so I'm pretty confident in that. Clearly, you want to have your shotgun run game and your under center run game. Obviously, your play action off the under center run game, but with Bo. And you see this with teams that, we're not just going to be a spread shotgun RPO offense only. There's times where I don't want the P in the RPO. There's times when you want to be able to control the game and run it regardless of the front and coverage you're getting. So I think in both areas, the notes I have just going through the game the second time now, they come up under center, and they also come up in the gun, but I don't have the exacts in front of me. They're easy to figure out, but we were higher running the ball clearly under center.
Chris Thomason, the Gazette.
Yeah. Hey, Sean, obviously Bo Nix being a rookie, how do you treat a quarterback possibly different coming off a difficult game if he's a rookie versus being, say, a veteran quarterback?
Yeah, I think it depends on the personality of the player more than it does whether he's a rookie or veteran. In other words, Bo's pretty mature. You guys have been around him. All these guys, when we put the tape on today, coaches as well, especially coaches, we've got to be able to start with, looking inward. And so I think a lot of that is the personality and makeup of the player you're coaching, and then how you go about coaching the player. And I think that's one of the important it's one of the important traits of a good coach is just being able to understand, hey, how they need to receive information. It's the same way with this team. I have a young team, and how was today's team meeting relative to how it would have been maybe with a veteran team. I personally think we're built for this. And what I mean by that is, obviously, if you just take the game itself, and you guys have covered this long enough, this pendulum swings back and forth in a game. The momentum obviously swung to the right in our favor for pretty much most of the first half. It felt like we played the first half on their end of the field. And then the third quarter came, and the pendulum began to swing back. Obviously, the teams that become more battle-tested and experienced are able to kind of keep the momentum a little longer. And then when the pendulum swings back, they can kind of quickly correct it. And so I think that I could use your question as to how we coach Bo, and then also treat it as how we coach the team in general after a tough loss.
Zach Stevens, DNVR.
Coach, like you mentioned earlier, the defense played outstanding in the first half and then struggled in the third. What was the difference there? And then they were able to bounce back in the fourth. Why was the third tough for them?
Yeah, I think the third. Look, Seattle came out with, there was a lot more tempo in the third. They hit a couple runs, and you kind of had us reeling a little bit with their play mix, run, play pass, and then they made a few plays. So I would say that third quarter was, by all accounts, probably at least 2/3 at the line. There's a shift, maybe a check. So I think I'm sure they looked at halftime of just trying to create more tempo because they were struggling in the first half.
Darren McKee, Altitude.
Coach, can you just talk about special teams on a more positive end of things, and especially Smith seemed to be so effective for you guys?
Yeah, we felt like we won the keys to victory in the kicking game. Just field position battle, return yardage battle. Obviously, we had a takeaway. We felt like we had a couple returns that were close, but overall, there were a lot of positives to draw on when we watched the special teams tape and talking with Mike and Ben this morning and Banjo. Those guys were encouraged. There were a handful of guys that that stood out, and that's encouraging. So we're meeting right now, actually, in the kicking game, and then we'll flip it over to offense and defense.
Nick Kosmider, The Athletic.
Good morning, Sean. A teaching question for you regarding Audric and the fumble. Do you generally coach guys against leaving their feet, or is it more just, hey, if you're going to do that, you got to be mindful of where maybe the hits are coming from?
Yeah, look, I think I don't coach against that. I just I don't ever want to take away from their instincts. The one thing that was interesting on that play, if you go back and look at it, it's a great play by the Seattle defender in that we had a takeaway. For instance, Singleton had an interception yesterday. But like that play I put on for our staff to look at, and there are some takeaways where you'd say, hey, it's an interception. There was pressure on Geno. He stepped up and Singleton made a play. But then there are other plays, and that's a turnover. But then there are other plays like Audric's where that's more of a takeaway. The timing of the tackle and then the deliberate punch out. And so I'm putting that play on as much for our defense. And then obviously we'll see it offensively relative to, if I'm in the open field and taking that approach. Now, that being said, last week in Audric's locker room, there was a picture of Barry Sanders to the left and then Jerome Bettis to the right. And Barry Sanders had the Ghostbusters like circle and red line through it. And so you got to know what kind of runner you're going to be in this league. And so, I didn't see many times where Bettis was leaping over people.
Brandon Cristal, KOA.
Coach, before I ask my question, can you just give us an update on Garrett Bowles, if there is one?
Yeah, the only update, look, and this, how about this being the first Monday morning presser where we'll discuss an injury, but then we're never going to discuss it again. So all the x-rays were negative. Good news there. MRIs were negative. Obviously, there's contusion. And then now that's what I know, and that's a positive. So, and then that's it. We used it up. You guys use your chip up there, and we'll go from there on Monday.
And then my question, I guess, is kind of I know it's week to week, but your first 4 games are against coaches that certainly have made their bones on the defensive side of the ball with tough defenses. I mean, I guess Mike and him was his first time, but good defenses in Baltimore. So does that allow you kind of an even, I guess, better barometer, if you will? I know all the defenses are tough, even with offensive coaches, but for Bo and the offense in the first 4 weeks?
I look. I think the number one thing for good head coaches is they're good leaders. Obviously, you can't control if they come from the offensive or defensive side of the ball. Mike McDonald, week one, the tape you're watching, all of that, and he's a bright young coach, and week two, Mike T now I've known forever, and I don't know that it's looked at differently. Certainly, the Steeler defensive tradition and how they performed over the years is certainly deserved or deserving of the accolades and all the success they've had. It's tough, it's physical. They do a lot of things extremely well, and that's not by accident. And so, I think we'll be seeing a better defense this weekend, and that's with no disrespect at all to Seattle. It's just a more experienced defense, if that's a better way to say it. But we'll have to obviously make the corrections and then get ready for a good week here for a home game.
Kyle Fredrickson, The Gazette.
Hey, Sean, I'm just curious what your impressions were of Brandon Jones and making his debut at safety after missing the preseason.
Yeah, overall solid. We were kind of pleased with call it his reentry, into a game. I mentioned during the week it was a little concerning. The worry always is a reoccurrence of an injury with someone that maybe hadn't played as much. But he's really smart mentally, and he'll be able to clean off some of the rust. But overall, was pleased.
I think that's all we have for you today, Coach. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you guys.